Good afternoon, everybody, and hello, all the purposeful people in the world. I hope that you guys are doing well on this Thursday afternoon. We've been experiencing a bit of a cold snap and, just trying to deal with how cold it's been. But I mean, that comes with the season and the territory, right? My name is Jessica Timms. I am thrilled to be with you this afternoon. I'm looking at everybody who's tuning in. Jane Lindy Thomas, I remember you're one of our guests. You stick out in my mind so big. Liesel, thank you for joining. And to everybody else who's tuning in, guys, we're thrilled to be with you. This is the Purpose Pioneer Talk Show, where we talk about that big why we do what we do, what motivates us, where our core beliefs about humanity come from, and how these can help us to make social impact in the world that we live in. And today's guest, I'm looking so forward to talking to him because we're going to be speaking about the family structure and raising kids to thrive in a constantly changing world. If there's one thing that all of us as adults are struggling with at the moment, it is definitely the sudden quick changes that have come about in such a disrupted world, the post-COVID society, the post-COVID consciousness. And I'm really thrilled to be speaking to Paul Bushell, who is a psychologist and an author. So I'm thrilled about that. If you have comments, questions, please put them in the comment box. And we will get through to them at the end of the interview and make sure that everybody's voice is heard and that we create a wonderful culture together. I am just going to see here if Paul is with us. Yes, he is. All right, just add him quickly and get the conversation going. I hope you're sitting with a coffee or some sweets. And there is Paul. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
Fine. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. I really like the painting in the background that you're sitting in front
Uh,
of.
it's a very special friend of mine who painted it for me. So yeah, thanks for saying that.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. How has your afternoon been? What's been keeping you busy since the lockdown started?
Yeah, well, we're having such a gorgeous autumn day here in Durbs today. So we're enjoying some blue skies. Um, yeah, the last day of this round of level 5. So it
Gosh.
feels like there's a lot of emotion, pent up emotion, and a lot of emotion in the air of what comes next, right?
Indeed, there is. And I think, just, from a human perspective, like 1 minute this was supposed to be 21 days, then 21 days became over 30 days. And then after the 30 days, now we're looking at level 4, which feels like a watered down version of level 5. So I think everybody's patience is being tested. And the first thing on my mind is, how are families coping?
Yeah, I think that, hi to Jane Lindley Thomas. Uh, as much as I'm the writer of the book, hashtag Raising Kids to Thrive in a Constantly Changing World, I'm also the co-founder of the Kindness Can movement with Jane Lindley
Yes.
Thomas. Um, and so her and I have been in close contact through this period and with other families. And it's very clear that the experience for the family has been a roller coaster of different emotions. And there's definitely been different phases to this experience, moments of real joy and connection and gratitude, but then also some really hard moments around frustration and fear, throw homeschooling and the prospect of how do we keep schooling into all of that. And then physical health on top of that. I think it's a real mixed bag of emotions for families at the moment.
You speak about that with so much understanding, and then my question comes obviously to the whole point of the show, which is, Paul, what is your purpose, and what was your journey like to finding it and realizing what your big why is in your life?
Yeah, well, I think purpose is it's such a wonderful journey in our lives. I don't think that it's necessarily an aha or a definite or a static thing. I think it definitely evolves and changes through the different seasons of our life. I've been a psychologist in private practice for about 12 years now. And so I suppose people and people's stories and the experience of the world has always been close to my heart and felt like something which really motivates me. And yeah, a couple of years ago, I wrote my first book, #Raising Kids, because it became clear to me that we're living in a constantly changing world, which we really are experiencing at the moment, how disruptive the world can be, and how hard that is for families and for adults and children to negotiate. And through the process of writing that book, which is a book about how we can grow emotional intelligence in young people, I very cheekily dropped Jane Lily Thomas from East Coast Radio an email saying, I can't think of anyone better in the world to write the foreword for my book. And yeah, she agreed, and we met up. And through those early conversations, I think both of us realized that we had a passion. We felt like we had a purpose around kindness and trying to, although we both believe that kindness is something that exists in all of us, it's often something that needs re-reminding, reigniting. It often needs tools, and people need to sharpen and grow those tools. And so we started Kindness Can, which has become a movement of talks and workshops for schools and corporates. We've started a podcast called the Kindness Can Podcast, where we're trying to ignite and help people access their kindness.
I've listened to it. It's amazing.
Yeah,
you guys are doing incredible work.
Well,
yeah,
I think it's what's so nice
I think
about
what I found refreshing about it was, and when Jane was a guest on the show, we spoke about how kindness to some can seem like vulnerability in such a power-hungry world, but kindness can really be a superpower that we can all harness within ourselves.
Absolutely. So kindness, we really believe it. And I think some people, when we talk about it, kind of like, yeah, that sounds kind of soft. It sounds kind of fluffy. It sounds really nice. But in reality, when we think about, when we start applying kindness, first and foremost in our relationship with ourselves. So when we start to be kinder to ourselves in our thoughts, in the way that we hold and manage our emotions, in the decisions that we make for ourselves, we start to grow a better version of ourselves. And we then bring that to the collective table, which is incredibly powerful because it changes those moments and it becomes this cascade effect. So it's not a nice to have. It's not something that's just fluffy or cute or rainbows. It's fundamental, and it often starts in that relationship with self.
Yeah. Speaking of kindness, moms and dads have really had to adjust very quickly to such a big change. And I'm not a parent, but I'm within a community of people who are parents. And sometimes maybe a friend of mine will video call me, and within the video call, the child jumps in the middle, and the mom is like, "Mommy is talking right now, don't bug me." And you feel so like heart sore, but then it's this interesting moment of play between a child who's just curious, "Mommy, what are you doing?" and a mom who's just trying to get like 5 seconds to herself to talk to a friend. So I just hope to talk about how can parents and kids cope together, I guess.
Yeah, so word, first of all, to all the parents and adults who've been in the lockdown with kids, because it's been a whole nother dimension to this experience, no doubt. And I think it's kind of taken the pressures and some of the fears and the anxieties of parenting and raising kids to another level. So if you are a parent out there who's been finding this experience hard, I want you to know that you're not alone. And it's totally normal and acceptable if you haven't always got it right or it hasn't always been smooth sailing. That's not how life in childhood is always meant to be. We're all just trying our best here. It's sometimes in those hard moments that we can reflect and we can learn and we can grow together. So I go back to what I was saying earlier about growing a kind relationship with yourself. I think on the parenting journey, growing a kind relationship with your inner parent is also so important. Sometimes being forgiving, sometimes being encouraging. With regards to the child jumping into the screen, Jane and I often talk about the fact that kindness is not always saying yes. Kindness is not always being Mr. or Mrs. Nice Guy. Sometimes being kind is having boundaries and having structures in place. And so when a parent says to a child, this is not your moment, the boundary is that I'm talking to my friend and I'll get to you in 10 minutes, that's a very healthy and kind thing for everyone in that moment, for the parent, for the friend, but also the child, because they're starting to learn where certain things are acceptable or not acceptable. You can't just butt in when other people are talking, and somewhere along the line, you've got to learn that. So it's a gift you're giving your child when you teach them that. Yeah.
As you were speaking now, I'm thinking to myself, if this were some sort of a game show and you had the kids on one side and you had the parents on one side, and each side was talking about, why don't you understand me? Your kids are like, we want to play, we want to have fun, like we can't go to school, we can't see our friends. And then at the same time, the parents are like, we have to work, we've got to homeschool you, we've got to still continue life as normal. So where do you think, I think as families, they've managed to find a way of sticking together through all of this hardship?
So I'm going to sound, I suppose, like a real psychologist now and go right down the middle. Because, and I precurse this with the idea that there's no such thing as perfect parenting. And sometimes you're just trying your best. And some days you'll get it right, and other days it's going to feel like everything's collapsing. And that's okay. Be gentle and mindful with those experiences. But I think for families navigating lockdown, it's about finding that balance between trying to have the structure and be as consistent as possible, and then also sometimes being forgiving and finding the balance between the two. So consistency, kids love rules, kids love boundaries, it makes them feel safe. And so sometimes it might not seem like it because they'll be very upset with you when you enforce the rules. But deep down inside, in terms of their development, it makes them feel safe, like you've got me. So having certain and maintaining certain boundaries and rules during this lockdown is really important. Don't let those things suddenly slip away. So as much as of your normal routine, within reason, right, that you can keep. So meal times, bed times, certain times for academic things, certain times for play and having fun, certain times for alone time or lying down on your bed and having a rest. Some kind of loose structure around that is really, really important. But then at the same time, making space to try, listen, and understand where your child is emotionally through this experience. And some days you'll notice they start acting up, or they're more defiant, or they just can't get it together. And pausing for a moment and trying to, either through a conversation with them, or just quietly on your own, trying to imagine, I wonder where you're at in all of this, and how can I help you with that? I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
I hope that it answers the questions of parents who are watching. And if you are watching and you're a parent, please ask any questions that you want to ask to Paul. And let me just get it. Is it pronounced Bushell or Bushell?
Bushell.
Bushell. Okay.
Yeah.
Before I keep saying your name often, I just needed to make sure that I'm pronouncing it correctly.
It's a great question. Lots of people get it wrong. So it's a good one.
we want to do this properly. When I think about the title of your book, I really took a moment to think about that. We always assume, I guess, that kids easily adjust. They grow, they adapt to settings wherever you place them. But when the world is constantly changing at this enormous speed, I think about the title of your book and I wonder, why did you write it? And what was your process through writing this book that you've titled Raising Kids to Thrive in a Constantly Changing World?
Well, I think, my book was part of me coming up to being in practice for 10 years and feeling like I had a lot of conversations from individuals and families and schools and community. And I wanted to kind of create something which was beautiful, but also accessible and practical for people. So the book is not a book. It's quite low on text, and it prioritizes activities. There's over 100 activities for parents to do with the kids in their life. At the time, I was really wrestling with this idea that we're raising kids for jobs that don't exist, and how stressful that is. Because what should we be prioritizing as the adults in the room if we don't really know what it's going to look like on the other end?
Right.
And yeah, so in that moment, I kind of heard my maths teacher's voice, and that's the power of teachers, saying something like, Paul, if you can find the constant, you can solve the equation. And then it became quite obvious that other than change, people are the constant in a constantly changing world. And although the world looks more and more different on the outside, what remains on the inside, our humanness, and I refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs in
Needs.
those basic needs which motivate our behavior and what's important for us in our lives has remained unchanging and will remain unchanging for a very, very long time. So if we can
Right.
teach young people how to understand their thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors, and how to understand the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of other people, we're surely giving them a leg up in a world which is full of disruption and change, because they're going to understand the constant in that world, which is people. So the book really, really focuses on how to nurture emotional intelligence in children. So how to nurture skills like playing with your thoughts, playing with your feelings, choosing your behavior, things like adaptability and resilience and empathy and communication and embracing of diversity. These are some of the things that make up our emotional intelligence. And if we can sharpen those in young people and ourselves as adults, I think that we certainly have an advantage in a world like this moment. This moment is proving, which will be full of disruption and change all the time.
There's really been a very interesting conversation happening in the country right now. I don't know if it's a conversation or just the strong reaction of parents as they announced, was it yesterday, that there's a strong or likely chance or not so likely chance, they're still thinking about it, of when they're going to open the schools. I went on Twitter and I saw the trending topic was grade 7 and grade 12s. You won't believe the things that I saw. People were like, I don't know if you know those funeral home ads that they have, those infomercials that they have on TV. They were taking those people's pictures, putting them there as memes, saying, "Good luck to you kids," you know. And I was thinking, that's really dark, because I understand that as adults, we want to protect children, and that we know and we understand that they're vulnerable members of society. But when it comes to going back to learning in the country, there's such a split reaction, because some are like, will there ever be a right time to send the kids back to school when there's still no cure or no vaccine for the COVID virus? But then at the same time, you know, the what's this now? The curriculum will suffer greatly if children don't resume the program again, and then they will create a backlog in the system. So I wanted to know from you, in terms of how we are feeling about our fears and our anxieties, do you think that we're passing them to our children, or is it just us protecting them? I know that was long-winded, but I'm
Yeah, no,
hoping you understand what I mean.
I hear you 100%. Look, first of all, I think it's a really, really hard decision to be having to make at the moment. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not me who has to make that decision, because we're really fighting the tension between, getting our kids back on track with the curriculum, also, as people start to go back to work, what do we do with our children? Who's going to look after them and keep them safe and stimulate them? At the same time, are we putting them in a vulnerable position by sending them back to school too soon, or when we don't understand the effects of the virus in this country well enough? So I think it's a really tough decision to be making at the moment. Yeah, it's a hard one. In terms of transferring our fear into our kids, so this moment is an example of that, but I think it happens in all sorts of other moments in our life. There's no doubt that experiences of fear and anxiety are on the increase globally. But in South Africa, we can understand that as well. For adults, I mean, we're faced by a lot of stresses and uncertainties. And I think as adults, we need to be very careful, because sometimes we do take those emotions and we start to transfer them and nurture and grow them in our children. And I don't think that that's fair. And I think it's sometimes quite dangerous. So you are allowed to have your fears and your anxieties, but you have to find a time and a place of working through those on your own. So whether that's talking with your partner or the other adults in your life, or seeking professional support, we can't use our children as a punching bag or a resting ground for those things. And I think what jumps to my mind first is being quite conscious of the things that we say in front of our children and the kind of media that we expose to our children. Because as much as the realities are real, and we don't want to raise kids who are disconnected and naive, there's certain facts, especially in Corona, and we can talk about that in a second, that our kids do need to know when they go back to school. But I don't think it's fair to be having terribly fatalistic, catastrophic conversations about COVID and the world in front of our children, or exposing them to it, because they'll understand it, but they might not necessarily know how to process or make sense of it. And that's kind of dangerous. So in terms of whenever the decision for our kids to go back to school is decided, I think it is important, though, for adults to sit down with the kids in their life and go through some precautionary measures. So talking about what is a mask, why are you wearing a mask, how you should wear a mask, talk about hand washing, practice it with the children in your life, start developing that habit with them now before they go back to school, trying to get them into the habit of not touching their face or being
That's
conscious.
a hard one.
The
Even
hard
for
one.
adults.
How many times have I done it in this conversation already? I know. And yeah, talking about social distancing, so why it's important to keep space between you and your friends. And although the first thing you're going to want to do when you see your teacher and your friends is run up to them and give them a big hug and a high five, why that's probably not a good idea right now. So what's different between that conversation and a conversation around we're all going to die if you go back to school, there's a difference between them. And we've got to keep those conversations separate, because the one is useful and the other not so useful.
That last thing that you mentioned there about you just want to run to your teacher and give him a hug. What ways can we, I guess, show kids to express love if in other ways if they can't do it with physical touch and connection?
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see my friends and give them a big hug. This is not only a kid problem. This is all of us right now. Yeah, Jane and I, in one of our podcasts, spoke about how wearing a mask changes and takes away some of our normal ways of showing connection and showing certain emotions, and how tricky that is going back into society where we will be wearing masks and where we can't hug and shake hands even, and how that affects our connection. So I think we're going to have to be creative around this. So whether that is using our eyes more, so kind of smiling with our eyes, making eye contact with people, using our non-verbal cues, so like you did there wonderfully, kind of like nodding our heads more, using our hands. So I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but kind of using thumbs up, using a peace sign. Jane had the wonderful idea in our conversation of making a little heart. And when you see people and you want to give them a hug, like give them a heart and beat it out. When you're in the supermarkets, I find it quite eerie at the moment how no one makes eye contact and no one kind of like looks up. And I worry about that a little bit. So when you are in the supermarket, look up, smile with your eyes, gesture to people to go in front of me. Those kind of gestures can go such a long way in these times of fear. And it comes back to the power of kindness.
Yeah. I remember being in the supermarket the other day, and there was a lady who was asking a question and her eyes looked like this and I couldn't see her mouth. So I was like, I don't know if she's angry or if she's just concerned. But yeah, you're right. Our eyes can be a great way of us showing other people that we are friendly. We're still loving human beings, even though this part of our face, can't be shown.
So I
Yeah,
suppose also, I saw someone just commented there, smizing, I love that.
yeah,
But I think also just using our words and not being afraid to use our words right now. So don't be afraid to say something positive. Don't be afraid to say something encouraging to people right now. We all have been starved of that connection and we're all scared. And your words can go a long way in making someone else feel safer, more connected. Jane and I often talk about you are a nation builder. Each and every one of us is a nation builder, and we have a responsibility to play right now in making this better. So say thank you to the person at the checkout. Say thank you to the security guard. Thank you. I appreciate you standing here today despite all the risks. And so verbalize it, because it can make someone's day, right?
indeed it can. And there's one thing that's on the cover of your book about this is and you can correct me if I'm wrong, a fun version of parenting, or a fun way to think about parenting. What are some of the ways that parents can discover their inner child with their kids in this time, and just find joy in what might have felt earlier on like something very laborious and draining, in this journey of lockdown, where we don't know when stage 3 is coming, when stage 2 is coming? So how can we keep the fun in our families, I guess?
Yeah. So play, and I'm talking about younger kids in particular here, but play is the language of children. It's often the way that they express their emotions, the way they make connection. And so and I'm talking loosely here, I'm not talking prescriptive, like a schedule, like boom, boom, boom. Like in the course of your day, be conscious of, maybe I'm going to spend some time just playing with my kids. Shonda Rhimes, in her book, Saying Yes, tells a wonderful story about how, in the book, she talks about how she was challenged to say yes more in
Yes,
her life. It's a
I
wonderful,
actually have it here. It's
yeah,
holding up my phone.
wonderful
It's
book.
right here.
And how she discovered with her kids that when she said yes to them more, so they were kind of like, mom, look here, or come play here. She discovered 3 important things. That when she said
Right.
yes to them and she got down and she played with them, she discovered, A, that it was a wonderful opportunity to get to know who her children were. B, it was a wonderful opportunity for her to share parts of herself with her children, her values, her knowledge, her emotion. And third, and this is the wonderful part, is that within 5 to 10 minutes, her kids were bored of her and she was free to go. And so it doesn't have to be long, complicated moments of play or interaction with our children. In my book, a lot of the activities are designed to be quick and short, but they are so valuable. So if you are a parent who's listening, don't feel like you've got to shoot the lights out and it's got to be something overcomplicated or expensive. it's just really a moment of you getting down to your child's level and really focusing all your attention on them. Not half on the TV or your phone or cooking, just really being with them. And those are very powerful moments.
And are there, as you mentioned your book now, are there any nuggets that you want to also share with us now? Because these IG Live moments that we have, they go so quickly. But I think it would be good for us to just, if you would like to, share some of the nuggets of wisdom that are within your book and those short tips that you have as well.
Sure. Well, I think maybe just an overarching and closing comment to make to all the adults, but all the parents in particular, that you are such a gift to your child, and don't let your guilt or your anxiety or your fear or your inevitable and understandable mistakes get in the way of you seeing yourself in that way. Each day is a new chance to get down and share that gift with your kids.
Okay, thank you for that. I see we have a question from Mrs. Shirley Lambert who says, so much pressure. Let me just try and see this. Okay, so much pressure is placed on parents to keep up with school activities sent by teachers. Should I be making more of an effort with... Sorry, Paul, I'm just trying to see how I make this
Yeah,
question
maybe
bigger.
the question, and I'm getting this question a lot at the moment. I think I probably
Yeah.
know where Shirley's going. It's, yeah, how do we, I know a lot of parents are feeling quite bombarded by all the homeschooling activities that are coming through, and juggling technology, learning curriculum, understanding curriculum when you're not a teacher, and then also still
Right.
trying to stay on top of your own job and your housework and your other relationships. Yeah, it's a struggle for parents at the moment.
Mm.
I'm probably not going to be so popular with all the schools when I say this, but I think it's really about, again, finding that balance between keeping our kids on the curriculum and trying the best that we can, but also being realistic with the fact that you might not get to everything in a day, especially with your younger
Mm.
kids. You're not going to get to every activity, and that's okay, because
Yeah.
the other time that you're spending with your kids, playing, sharing, doing stuff together and teaching them skills through those moments, whether it's making a cup of coffee or making a bed, or talking about your life or looking at pictures, that also has incredible value in this moment. So I think, trying to do as many activities as you can, but if you're not getting to all of them, that's okay. Just make sure that you're also filling the day with other meaningful, special things like play and being together. Yeah. I hope that
I,
answers
s-
your question.
I see she's added the rest of the question, which was, I'm watching them play and I'm wondering, isn't that enough to just watch them do what they're doing? Is that also
Yeah.
sufficient?
Play, depending on the age of your kid or your children, uh, play is a very healthy, wonderful thing to do. Non-directive play, we know, promotes and grows skills like curiosity and creative thinking and imagination. So, yeah, I think so long as you're giving them the right stimulus, and it's not just a two-dimensional screen, um, so long as it's things which can be constructive, I think that is very useful. I would say to Shirley as well, why don't you join them? Get in on the action and participate in the play as well, and take it to another level of learning, because in that moment you can impart certain things as you go along as well.
Got you. My parting question to you is, can a family have a purpose, and how do we find that together as a unit? Just as a parting question.
Yeah, well, I think a family should definitely should probably have several purposes. But yeah, being part of Kindness Can and the work that Jane and I do with Kindness Can, I would think that a significant purpose for families is to be kind to one another and to
Right.
nurture and grow and celebrate kindness within our families. Because when we start to role model and celebrate that and show it as a real skill, we're going to raise young people who go into the world and who feel confident on how to be kind and see value in it. And that will stand them in incredible stead.
Paul, I really hope we have a part two one day.
Yeah,
Uh,
fantastic.
because there's so much to think about. I mean, even with parents who are not living together and you've got a separate family structure, or you might have kids who are living in a family structure where their parents are not even getting along that well. There's so much to talk about. Siblings as well, how siblings are coping. uh, Gosh, so much to talk about. I hope we have a part two. Thank you so much for spending your time with us on this Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And if anyone wants to find out more about the work that Kindness Can does,
Right.
they can follow us on social media, look for the little toucan, or make your way to our website, kindnesscan.co.za. And then if anyone is interested in getting a copy of my book, they can, yeah, just send me a message on social media or go to my website, which is bushell.co.za. And yeah, we do have PDF versions of the book available as well.
There you have it. That's Paul Bushell, a psychologist and author, just talking to us about raising kids to thrive in a constantly changing world. Guys, to everybody who's been watching, thank you so much. Please do tune in again on Tuesday. We'll be speaking to Tseho Siahwe, and she is a model and an actress. We'll be getting more about how she is living her life with a sense of purpose. And please do, if you can, follow at the Change Collective Africa for more Purpose Pioneer talks as we figure out the big question of why we do what we do. So thank you guys so much. Remember to have a very, very, very awesome weekend. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.